us now for some perspective on the results is Dr. Roland Ngam, as well of Rosa Luxembourg Foundation in Southern Africa, as well as strategic consultancy QED Solutions Director Dirk De Vos. A very good afternoon to you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. We've just heard the announcement. In fact, in news just in, the Eskom has recorded a half-year profit of 9.2 billion rand. They're saying that it's the first time since 2017. Starting off with you, Dr. Ngam, what's your immediate reaction to that?
Well, the first profitability since 2017, but at the same time we have a loss of about 9.2 billion rand. Like I have been predicting all along, there is a lot of improvement, and this improvement is to be expected with the separation that is going to happen at Eskom. Finances, really good work done there, but a lot still needs to be done in terms of power generation so that we make load shedding a thing of the past.
Mr. De Vos, you know, was this outcome sort of expected when it comes to, I mean, the first 6 months of the year? We heard some Eskom officials speaking to how it varies with the first 6 months and the second 6 months of the year. Okay, we can't, we're still having problems hearing Mr. De Vos there, but we continue our conversation, Dr. Ngam, as, you know, we speak to some of the other elements that were announced. Some good news, I suppose, for IPPs when it comes to land that has been made available in Mpumalanga.
Yes, like the Minister, Pravin Gordhan, was announcing, you have about 36,000 hectares available. And some of this is going to be given to IPPs. What this really does is that in terms of getting permits, it will cut down the time. In terms of doing the environmental impact assessments, it will cut down the time, as well as connection to the grid. And so this land is already on Eskom land where you already have transmission grid installed, and the companies should be able to hit the ground running, connect and wheel power through Eskom's grid fairly quickly. And apparently there are many IPPs that have already started applying for some of these assets.
I want to go back to Mr. De Vos. I hope you can hear me now. If you may please unmute, because we can see you talking, but we just can't hear you. I just want to get a reaction from you. Good afternoon. When it comes to some of the big factors that we heard coming out of these results, the 9.2 billion rand profit, as well as it being against the backdrop of a forecasted loss. What is your take on that?
Well, I think, as I said, we've got to watch out on these half-year results, because they are just in relation to the first part of the year. And the full year will be closer to what these projections are. And I think when they do project as to what a year-on-year performance would be. So I think we shouldn't read too much into this, but there is a welcome stabilization. And I think that is obviously very positive. One of the things, of course, is the support of government has been critical, and that is a significant amount of support. The Eskom says that it's unsustainable. Well, I mean, Eskom says that this can't continue, and I think, you know, as taxpayers, we all know that that's really tough on us too. So I think we shouldn't read too much into these interim results.
Some strides have been made in increasing grid capacity. We heard Minister Pravin Gordhan speaking about access to Eskom-owned land, which will be beneficial.
Yes, so that is a welcome change. And I think that's also part of what happens when you do open Eskom up with the unbundling, as is happening. So all of a sudden you kind of are looking at a number of opportunities where Eskom is, instead of trying to preserve what they have and it's declining, the declining performance of generation, they're kind of looking and saying, well, this is what we've got. These are our assets. This is our future. And I think that that's an immensely positive development.
Dr. Ngam, we also listened into a lot of talk around some of the challenges, the big challenges Eskom is facing, measures to addressing generation capacity, the shortfall. Of course, that is a huge factor, and we heard elements of some of the solutions. What is your overall assessment of some of those conversations in leading to sufficient generation, power generation?
Well, generation is down about 5%. And we saw in their report in October that a lot of this is really coming from coal. Coal is impacted, nuclear also impacted compared to last year. But at the same time, we also need to celebrate some of the announcements that were made. For example, the Ruyter saying that the National Transmission Company of South Africa has been registered. And so the separation of Eskom really has been achieved to all intents and purposes. And we should be looking early next year for a lot of the announcements about wheeling costs and so on to be made, as well as some of the smaller IPPs that want to sell through Eskom's network. And for me, really, this is the most important aspect of that announcement, the fact that we already have a national transmission company registered and ready to go. Eskom has about 400,000 kilometers of cabling and so on. The minister already announced as well that they are expanding in the Northern and Eastern Cape, and this should be seen not just in the light of supplying to 6.5 million consumers, but also to connect the producers who are ready to start selling to Eskom.
Mr. De Vos, let me move the conversation to you. We heard a lot about coal. Dr. Ngam mentions coal. We heard about how important it is to ensure that the quality of the coal is something that is scrutinized and looked at. And also, speaking about the transmission company, they said that they'll be engaging with lenders, in fact, this afternoon at around 5 p.m., but they still require a transmission license to be cancelled. How long, will we see the fruit of this company?
Well, I mean, one of the things is simply the regulatory and legal stuff, which you point out, and there has been progress here, as was announced. But I can't think that they haven't been doing this in a kind of parallel process. So it's not like, well, now we've sorted it out and we're going to start this process. I think that the process has been going on with the regulators such that when it's ready, I don't think it's going to take very long at all. I can't imagine that it would.
You've also been very vocal when it comes to Eskom's role and position within the South African economy. I mean, we've heard President Cyril Ramaphosa saying that Eskom cannot be allowed to fail. Looking at some of the results that we've heard this afternoon, what do you think are perhaps some elements of encouragement, even as we're still going to face load shedding going into the festive season?
Well, I think there is lots of room for pessimism, because essentially when Eskom when it unbundles, and we'll be able to see the full impact of exactly where the generators are and so on. But I think what we have is what should have happened really decades ago. And so Eskom is now where it ought to have been some time back. And it's a reflection on really, if we had done the kind of things that have been announced today some time ago, a lot of pain could have been avoided.
Dr. Ngam, what's your take? I mean, looking at the broader impact of the economy and the COVID-19 also having its own impact to movement and generation capacity in the country.
Well, when Andre de Ruyter was announced, his appointment was announced, I told people that he was there really to do he was to do a job. And he has shrunk the liabilities. He has cut down staff maybe by about 5,000 people. Profitability is up. And a lot of this really is to prepare the separation. And we are almost there. Like Dirk is saying, it's something that could have happened a bit earlier. We are going to see a lot more generation in future. But at the same time, we need to caution about the people in the poorer areas, in the rural areas as well. We need to supply enough electricity for all these people. Eskom really is too big to fail, and that is why we need to have a lot more of these conversations, because we shouldn't only be about 60 gigawatts of electricity. We need to be also thinking about increasing capacity and having extras, because a lot of the problems that we have been having this year, the last time about 20 gigawatts collapsed when we had the rounds of load shedding, a lot of that was because we are pushing the coal plants too much. And so we are really slowly moving in the right direction.
Right, let's leave it there for now, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Roland Ngam, as well as Dirk De Vos, weighing in there on the reaction to the financial results of Eskom being unveiled.